Ability Inside Disability podcast is aimed at having conversations on learning, intellectual, and developmental disabilities. These conversations are geared towards understanding these conditions like autism, dyslexia, Down syndrome, and support for persons with these conditions and their families. On this podcast, we do have guests that range from teachers, psychiatrists, neurologists, parents, and even persons with these conditions themselves. We would very much appreciate that you share these videos so your loved ones and others can benefit from the content in these conversations. We appreciate that you like them, and we'll also suggest that you subscribe so you can always receive notification whenever other videos on these conversations come. Today, we are going to be talking about comorbidities. And to discuss this with me today is a resident speech therapist at the Ogun Special School, Mr. Boniface.
Yes, thank you
so much.
Thank you very much.
We will be focusing today on speech, communication, speech disorders, speech difficulties, communication disorders, communication difficulties, and those conditions that could come along.
Yes.
What is comorbidities?
Okay, we stated earlier that that we have to focus on the matter of comorbidity. But before we look into comorbidity, it's necessary for us to note this. And I'm saying this for the benefit of many therapists that are also working with children with disabling conditions, persons or adults who have suffered from stroke, that most of these conditions don't come alone. Yes, they come along with other disabling conditions. And I think over the years, if you have worked as a therapist for, let's say, 5 to 10 years, you would have noticed a lot that there are many things that are trying to impede the effort that you are making to address the speech difficulties that you have diagnosed. So comorbidity now, in this understanding now, is saying that is a condition whereby two conditions or two underlying conditions are happening simultaneously, and they are affecting one another in their expressions in that particular person. So you can find a child who is having, who you may have diagnosed with childhood apraxia of speech, and that child is showing issues when it comes to controlling impulses. That is having a problem with ADHD. Or that child may be having a challenge with issues that has to do with social communication and so many other kind of problems that can come underlying. So you must be aware practically of all these challenges that can stop or impede the progress of your own therapeutic intervention. So it's necessary for us to note, and if we don't note this, of course, many of the things we'll be doing will be proving abortive at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. So, like you mentioned just now, you said a while ago, in the course of your explanation, you talked about ADHD as a possible comorbidity that could come along with childhood apraxia in speech. So, how within a therapy setting and even in a school setting, because therapy is not just only individualized.
Yes.
You also do speech therapy in a school environment. Yeah. How would, because you said it now that they could be impacting the development of that child simultaneously.
Yes.
So
can you explain in terms of practical terms how this could happen?
I like to look at speech and language use. That's the audible and intelligible use of speech as an orchestra, maybe a music band that needs all the parts to be functioning effectively and at the same time for perfect harmony to be produced. Now, we must note that for speech to be produced effectively and audibly for communication to be successful, we must know that it relies on hearing, it relies on attention, it relies on language skills. It also relies on motor coordination because we have to manipulate all our articulators to be able to produce the sound, even in the way, with the pitch, the right pitch that will pass the physiologic quantities of a speech that the speech supposed to have to pass the message it intends to pass in a conversation. So we must understand that these are the factors that play on the ground. And over the years, I don't just make a plan to begin to address or handle the child's inability to speak. I always tell my clients or the caregivers that the focus should be first of all ensuring that the foundational skills necessary for speech to be learned as a behavior is already there. And in my ability to checkmate all those skills, I tend to begin to see how other comorbidity conditions are coming into play. So in a way, I'm addressing those things to make sure that when I finally try to build on the foundation that I've created, the speech is used audibly and intelligibly in conversation. That is, the child knows what he's trying to say, not just repeating a word. It's another kind of condition on its own. So when I work with children in the clinic, we are focusing on skills that border around attention. First of all, I like to always ask about the hearing condition of the client, because speech, like I said, is a learned behavior. It is when you hear it that you imitate it. And if you have problems with imitation skills, with attention skills, it becomes very difficult. So you see, that is where ADHD, autism, and all other conditions, even intellectual disability, comes to play. They affect the child's ability to imitate, ability to share joint attention on a particular thing, ability to even have attention kept on an instruction. In fact, the necessary skill when it comes to symbolic language skills, ability to create a bridge between what is said and what it represents in the physical world. And, you know, that is all I looked out for whenever I'm handling a child with, or even an adult with a speech condition. I would like to make sure that those factors are placed. I work with my clients considering the language pyramid theory. That it suggests that if you want to build a pyramid, you must start from the foundation. And you must make sure that the bottom is rich to hold the top. And the top is actually what we expect the child to engage in audible and intelligible speech. Yes, speaking. So using those speech in expressing their ideas in their mind. So at the bottom, we have attention, we have imitation skills, we have symbolic language skills, and it keeps growing as we begin to teach the child the pragmatics, the syntax, the rules that are involved in speaking. So generally speaking, I would say that there are many things that comes into play, and looking at the foundation helps us to checkmate those things. Yes.
That was quite broad, but very, very insightful. And like, based on what you just said now, if there will be progress in the effort made to help the child to be able to make audible and intelligible speech, we have to make sure that every other areas that could possibly impede that, they are taken care of. So I want us to be, because we are going to be, there will be a lot of specifics, because it comes across to me as a very, very practical oriented, area in terms of growth, because speech is practical. So now we now have comorbidities now. So you explained about ADHD. So some of our guests may be thinking, what is ADHD and how, because you've said it, that you talked about focus when it comes to ADHD. So what exactly is ADHD and why is it finding?
Okay, in explaining what ADHD is, I will give my view as a speech and language therapist to it. Yes, ADHD is an acronym for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. And from the word there, it's meaning that there is an attention deficit, and there is also a hyperactive disorder in behavior. So ADHD, you can't just see someone say, oh, he's not paying attention and he's hyperactive in a particular environment, and you say, he has ADHD. No. The child must have expressed a notable behavior or a notable factor in attention at every environment he finds himself. So he does it in church, he does it in the school, he does it in the market, he does it with people he knows, he does it with people he don't know. Then it's a pointer. You can actually diagnose or state or label a child without a proper assessment. Yes, by a pediatrician. So, yes, so it just borders around a child having problem with attention. The child cannot express joint attention. That is, find something interesting and try to call your attention to enjoy such things that he's also observing. That is where speech begins, because the idea of communication is for me to connect. That's the idea of communication. And if the child is having a problem there, already the child will not be able to connect. Yes, so ADHD, you see how it's affecting communication generally. It's affecting speech. And like I said, speech is a learned behavior. And if the child is not paying attention to the speech directed to him, he cannot learn that, okay, the word cup is actually representing the actual cup I am holding or the actual cup on the table. And it will be difficult for him to use it whenever he needs to get a cup. So you see, ADHD in that way is greatly affecting the use of speech. And for cases that are in severe to profound state, you find the child is not aware of his environment, but he feels like a bird. That's where the hyperactive behavior comes in. And he wants to climb everywhere. He wants to just jump up and at every environment he finds himself. And, I used to tell people there is much abstract calculations that is done for speech to actually come out from our mouth, intelligible speech to be used, than what we do on the board when we are solving mathematics. There is so much calculation, so many things comes into play. But because already we have developed those skills, the regular child, so to speak, have developed those skills fundamentally, and he does it in milliseconds. Every of those things comes together and the word comes out and is used actively in communication. We don't actually pay attention. But over the years, I have found out that it takes a lot. When I look at the process of sound production, I look at how it's going to be used in language, I look at how it's going to be used to pass an idea, the laws that the child must follow to be able to make sure that the other person receiving the message gets the actual message in that conversation. And when I look at it, I find out there is a lot of brain work, a lot of cognition. And so, in a way, in my own practice, I try to tone down the abstraction. Yes. Now, we use a lot of techniques. You have to be I have to say this, you have to improvise a lot. You have to also make research, get information from so many sources. But we use specs, we use AACs, things that will make the abstract thinking or the process of speech, bringing out speech, will make it more concrete. Something they can access. And something they can see, oh, this is the pattern that I can think of. So with time, they begin to get used to it, that it becomes natural just as it is for the regular child. So borderline, like I said, ADHD coming in play into speech, it greatly affects, because if the child is not able to sit, the hyperactive behavior now, is not able to sit in a place, he will not be able to learn. One of my teachers used to tell us the best position to learn is first of all to sit. And that is why the learners sit and the teachers stand. Yes.
So in the course of your explanation earlier on, you talked about autism. So I will want you to help us understand how the role that autism could play as a condition that comorbids speech or communication delays or disorder, and how this could, the role it could play in impacting the process of establishing the ability to use speech intelligently and, loudly in terms of vocal.
Yeah, now, for children or adults with autism, there are three things that really mark out autism. That is problems or challenges, I like to call them challenges in social communication, challenges in behavior, behavior, and also response to different kind of stimuli that comes from the environment, how they respond to it. And this, in a way, it affects the learning of speech generally. Yes. So when a child is having a problem with social communication, that is, he's unable to give good eye contact, he's unable to understand facial expression, he cannot read the room. It's very difficult for most of, even people on the mild case, it's difficult for them to read the room and know when to be quiet, when to talk, when it's your turn. Turn-taking skills is also a challenge for children and adults with autism. And so all of these factors, and in communication, turn-taking skill is fundamental. I had to wait for you to talk or ask me questions before I could answer. Exactly. And that makes our conversation more engaging, more powerful, more rich, because I'm not talking over your voice, you're not talking over mine. That's turn-taking on the fundamental level, helping communication generally. So when a child has a fundamental problem that place, it's going to be difficult to understand the pragmatics in speaking, the unseen rules, so to speak, that people use to express things in language. So when a child also have challenges with sensory input, for instance, maybe there is a loud noise and it triggers them into maybe a meltdown or something, already communication is already destroyed. There is a communication breakdown. And when there is communication breakdown, the idea I want to pass to the child is lost, because I'm overwhelmed with the situation that the child is presenting. And I'm overwhelmed with that circumstance. So everything about communication has to stop. We have to find a way to bring the child to rest before we can begin to engage the child. So autism, like I said, if a child also have problem with understanding facial expression, it will be difficult to know, this person is not happy with what I said. And that is why most of them who are on the mild spectrum are somewhat brutally honest whenever they talk. They don't, yes, no filter. They don't kind of, there are some things when I want to say it, even though it's the truth, there is a way I will look at the person. Like I said, the hidden rules in communication that helps me to be more of a human than a robot. So I think in my own sphere, that is how I think autism comes to play to really affect communication and speech. Yes.
Speech is not the only a form of communication. Speech vocalizes your thoughts, but there are so many other ways of communicating. Like you just said now, reading the room. Reading the room is a way of communication too, because that way you know whether you're needed in that room or you are not needed in that room, and if you are needed, how much visibility should you project in the room. So, and all of these things are things that we learn instinctively, I think. There is no school that teaches you this.
Exactly. While growing up, nobody had to gather us in a room and tell us that when our mother looks at us with a kind of eye, we have to leave the room. They don't care. Look at them. In fact, they will even come to you and touch your face. So that's how it actually plays a role there.
But in the space of humor, isn't that a beautiful thing by itself? At least they will be able to break ice and help us not to be too serious about everything, Exactly. Of course it does. In a serious space, people may see them as nuisance, and like those on the mild level, like you said, they have a lot of articulation. If they read the expression wrong, it may really affect them negatively in terms of their sense of self-worth. Well, what do you think? That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, that is affecting.
Being able to read the room.
Yeah.
Also could have some psychological impact on them as well.
Yeah, that is the essence of this particular podcast, because we need to get an environment that will be accommodating to our children and our adults with autism and the different kinds of learning and intellectual disability. Why? Because they have challenges understanding or reading the room, they will always act out of turn. And when they act like that, they will be considered immediately as nuisance. And by doing that, it affects them emotionally. Yes, it affects them emotionally. They also have emotions. And they understand, especially those in the mild spectrum anyway, they understand that, okay, I'm not wanted here or I'm wanted here. And that will actually really affect them when it comes to getting into conversations and learning more about communication. Rather, they begin to withdraw, and the more they withdraw, the less they learn about their environment, which is not good for communication generally.
It's not good for communication, and eventually it's not a good thing for their mental health as well. So we've talked about autism now as a condition that could comorbid speech delay or communication disorder. We've talked about ADHD that could comorbid communication disorder or speech delays or difficulties. Now, are there medical conditions that could also comorbid speech or communication issues?
Yes, there are a lot of medical conditions. In fact, I have to say this, the Hippocratic Oath for doctors keeps them on the focus to ensure that they do whatsoever it takes to save a life. But, after doing that, there are many times some medical interventions can lead to other health conditions. There are medical interventions that can lead to other health conditions that will actually affect speech. And there are also medical conditions on themselves that the client or the patient may have undergone or may be experiencing that really affects speech. Take, for instance, stroke, traumatic brain injury that really impacts their use of speech, even though they have acquired language before the stroke setting. Yes. So those medical conditions, when they come in, they really affect, as they're affecting the body physiology, they also affect speech. Take, for instance, that stroke, as I mentioned. It affects the core in the brain, the center in the brain that is responsible for speech, for coordination, and for cognition when it comes to putting things together to express one's mind. And as well, it also affects the muscles at some parts of the body. And so, yes. So you see, that's where motor coordination comes in. When the person is unable to send impulses to those articulators to bend, to fold, to close or open, so that air can be produced into sounds or the vibrations can happen, then automatically is affecting speech. Is affecting speech. And so I also have seen in my experience how hearing challenges that are either congenital or that are adventitious, that's acquired after the person or the client have acquired speech or have learned something that is in terms of language. I have seen how it can equally lead, it can even lead to anxiety. It can lead to depression, and it can also fall back on harming the speech. Because I worked with a client and I noticed that the hearing condition was more like the fundamental problem. And then it sprang out into different kind of problems that include depression and anxiety, because the person decided to seclude himself, and it was difficult for him to engage others in communication. And that also led to so many phonological problems when it comes to speaking. So you see, in a way, they are interwoven, they are playing different roles, and they are causing different kind of... Yes, and in a way, it kind of forms a new communication profile, like a new problem. For instance, we have a client that, okay, I have assessed this client, and in the assessment, the cognition is there, the understanding of spoken words is there, but when it comes to the phonological challenges, it has a lot of phonological problems, both at the initial, the middle, and the final part of the words that he used in sentence. But you will find out that there is also other problems that are affecting the pragmatic use of speech. That is as a result of maybe anxiety, as a result of the hearing problem, as a result of maybe intellectual disabilities that is slowing the learning of that particular client. So in a way, when they come together, they form a new profile. And I think that is why research is still ongoing to really try to group a lot of things that are coming, new conditions. They may look as if it is new, but it is just many conditions coming to play.
Okay, so why is this, we've talking about this conversation has been geared towards therapists and teachers. Is it information on comorbidities and the impacts it could have on the primary diagnosed condition, whether simultaneously or side by side, Isn't it important for parents to get to understand the primary condition and the comorbid condition?
Yes. Many times, especially parents who have engaged our services, they often ask, or I believe, even if they don't want to ask, there is this question you see in their faces. Why is it that we are not seeing the child speaking already? And I tend to tell them that there is a lot of process involved for the child to use intelligible speech, use it practically, and you are aware that that knows and understands what he's saying. And because there's a lot of things that comes to play, both, like I mentioned, attention, imitation skills, symbolic language skills, conceptual development skills, there are play behavior. We have to look at that area too, that they come in place, because the best time to watch a child use self-prompted speech is when the child is playing. So many of these things comes to play, and I want parents to understand that it's just like you expect a child that maybe you give the child a space of a year and plus to begin to utter word. You also have to give time for this, because you must understand that the child is fixated at a particular age while he is advancing chronologically at his own age. So he's fixated at a certain, for instance, a child can be 5 years, but his speech ability, all the skills shows that he's at his speech and language development age is at maybe 2 years.
Yes.
So we have 3 years work.
Yes.
We have to compress it and see how we can try to catch up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with that understanding, I would love to employ parents, teachers, while working with our children with challenges when it comes to speech. You have to be patient, seeing that it's a learned behavior and they have problem with learning. Already we have factored out fundamental issues that can actually affect the learning. You have to be patient with them. That's the borderline.
So, I want, clearly, children with communication and speech issues, they would most likely need speech therapists to support the process of improvement.
Yes.
And hopefully being able to actually articulate and use intelligent words and language eventually. How accessible is the services of a speech therapy to the people that need them?
Okay.
Let's start with Plateau, that we are in right now.
Okay, before I say anything on that, I must emphasize, seeing that we have established that many things are coming into play.
Yes.
While addressing a child's need, you must also know that many professionals must also come to play. Yes, not just the speech and language therapist. Recently, I was reviewing the reports of one of my clients, and I noticed, even before now, we've noticed that she's expressing SIB, that's self-injurious behaviors. And already it has been a challenge when it comes to helping that child to learn the fundamental skills he needs to learn for development of speech. And at a point, we had to begin to call in professionals. We had to call in professionals. Why? Because I'm also noticing another challenge apart from speech. We have to call in a behavioral therapist. We have to call in an occupational therapist to handle different aspects that the child is. Because if the child is having all these challenges, it will directly or indirectly affect the development of speech. Yes, and the use of it generally. So that is just one. We must note, since these things come hand in hand and they work simultaneously, they comorbid with each other. We must also comorbid in our own side as therapists as well to address it. Yes.
The addressing of the issue.
Exactly. Exactly. I like to call it that. I like to target that, a comorbid approach, because that is what will actually help the child at the end of the day. Now, concerning the matter of speech and language therapy in Nigeria, yes, there is an organization, an association that is responsible to ensure that they gather them. But we are in gross lack when it comes to gross need for speech and language therapists. Yes, because it appears that the matters bordering autism, intellectual disability, even cerebral palsy is on the increase. And as much as we are waiting on researchers to find out what is causing this to be on the increase, especially in Africa and in Nigeria specific, we will need a lot of hands on deck. So I am going to say that we have a gross need for therapists, not just a speech and language therapy.
Across the board.
Yes, across the board. Since we are doing a comorbid.
It cannot be only the speech therapist doing it. Everybody has to do their part, so that all of the comorbid and all of the underlying stuff will be taken care of and not impede on the whole process of helping the child get speech. Now, is there a possibility that in spite of all of the comorbid, everything approach, the child still ends up not having speech?
Yeah, I love to be optimistic. I love to be optimistic when working with my children. I am a strong believer that whatever I set my hands, it must work. But of course, we also have to be realistic. It is most possible that you work with a child and the child may not end up using speech and communication. But you know, in my practice, I give more attention to communication than I give to speech. I give more attention to communication. So, for instance, there are certain anatomical factors and issues that can come upon a client that will make the client become increasingly difficult to manipulate those articulators, even though he understands and knows what he wants to project. And we have to find other ways, other channels to let that idea come out. That is why I believe strongly in the human capacity to always find a way, and God's ability to help us find a way where there is no way. So, yes, there are conditions whereby you work with a child for years, and what you are building is just comprehension. The child grows to understand spoken speech that is directed to him, but is unable to utilize it the way it's expected. And that is where AAC comes in, PECS comes in, the sign language comes in. My teacher, my professor, taught us while we were in training that we must always consider the total communication approach when looking at the matter of speech, when handling speech generally. Our focus is communication. Let's get this person to say what is in his mind. Let's get this person to express. Because when the person learns to express, it relieves or it empties the possibility of anxiety, of depression, and all other psychotic or psychological conditions that can come in and comorbid. So since we are trying to avoid other tenants from coming in to live, we want to handle the one that is. So our focus will now be on communication. Yes. So yes, over the years I've recorded some kids that have difficulty speaking, especially children with cerebral palsy. But I have also recorded tremendous improvement in their cognition, their understanding of spoken language, and their joy or excitement to let out what they know. So we just find other ways to do that.
And these ways includes sign language, AAC,
yes.
PECS.
PECS.
And what is PECS?
PECS is an acronym for Picture Exchange Communication System. Yes, it's the way of using pictures to ease the abstraction in communication and allow the free flow of ideas back from the sender to the receiver and all that. So many people fear that when the child begins to use AAC, sign language, I even get some reports from medical practitioners advising clients not to allow the child to go into other forms of communication, but to gear their focus on speech. And I tell them, well, the client I understand the fears that he's entertaining, because their aim is to, at the end of the day, help that child to speak. But my aim is different. My aim is to help that child to communicate. So sign language, although many people say yes, if they use them for a while, they may tend to just relax and forgo anything concerning speech and then continue using it for conversation. And I beg to differ, because when someone has the ability to control these articulators but is finding it difficult to let it out, through modeling, through sign language, through those PECS, through AAC, it's just giving more modeling of language, more modeling of speech. And I think at the end of the day, it helps the whole process. So, yes, like I said, but one needs to be trained on how to use it. Because I want to say this particularly, it's best to be informed before you get to engage a child with disability. Else, we will be breeding more pessimistic persons who have engaged in the field and say, this doesn't work. So it's best to get informed about the PECs, about AAC, about even sign language, and how to use it for persons who hear but cannot express or use
what
it.
they hear,
Exactly.
the information that they have. So what is AAC?
AAC is short for augmented and accelerated communication.
Okay.
Yes, augmented, which means we are adding to this to augment.
Okay.
Yes, so we are using pictures or we are using other devices to augment the lack we see and accelerate. There is a duration for conversation, for a line of thought to come forth. And many times, even children experiencing different forms of disfluencies like stammering, cluttering, and the rest, before they express themselves, after struggling with those prolongations or those repetitions and all that, you find out that the person, the receiver, is already bored, is trying to move to the next conversation. Why? Because there is always a duration for a line of thought to be communicated to the receiver. And so what AAC does is accelerates their inability to meet to that timeline. So instead of, since he's having problem with saying, I want water, he can use the picture or the device to say it, I want water. So he doesn't need to start practicing to say, I want water.
So that it will not be like he's memorizing.
Exactly.
Instead, he's saying it and is able to identify it.
Exactly.
Which reinforces it because there's a concrete element to his visualizing.
Yes, exactly. So
to the abstract.
Yes.
The head is matched with.
Exactly. That's the whole idea, reducing the abstraction and making it quicker so that he can engage in communication. Okay. Yeah.
So,
as a therapist, you get to meet a family who has a child with speech delay. Now, you want to work with the child. How far along would you go working with the child? That is after realizing that this child has a situation where it may really be difficult for the child to use expressive speech. The child will be able to communicate with other enablers like the PECs and the AAC and the sign language, but the child may actually find it difficult, based on your experience, to use expressive approach to communicating. How far, when will be the best time for you to have this conversation with the family, or it's not necessary?
I love the fact that you brought this up. It's very important. I think in my few years of practice, I've come to learn this in a hard way. Now, when I started practicing, I was like filled with possibilities. Like, let's go in there, let's try to see how we can create magic. And whenever anybody asks me, what do you do? I quickly tell them, this is what I do and all that. And I'm so excited because I'm doing the impossible. I feel I'm doing the impossible. But at some point, when I sit back to review progress and I begin to try to gather reports and check the duration of time that we have actually spent, it gives me reason to begin to think, what are we not doing well? I always ask myself that every time when I do report, what is it that I can add to make this better? And I recently learned that you cannot do therapy without the parent or the caregiver. Yeah. You have to find a way to bring them into the picture of things. And recently my mind has been geared to that. How can we bring therapy to the home, whereby we can also include the parents or the caregivers to do some certain things, to use teachable moments, to use moments that are, I believe, God-given into in the home, whereby you can immediately model a behavior or model a speech. How can we use them effectively and productively for that child to learn speech? And also even in the classroom, how can we also get the teachers to be involved? And I am always thinking in the aspect of training parents, training teachers, training clinicians, training anybody who is interested, so that we can create a good environment. So if the child leaves the home and goes to the classroom, the teacher is equipped at least with some fundamental knowledge to be able to handle that child and also work on what the therapist is also doing in the clinic. So it's a hard lesson, but I am grateful that I learned it this early, and I am banking on it greatly. How can we get parents to really, really get involved? And the long run, it helps them because, of course, therapy is not free. Yes, so in the long run, they learn to do one or two things by themselves with that child because they've developed a natural rapport with the child, and so it can help them as well to cut down costs. But apart from that, beyond that, it helps them to get engaged in the process, the speech development process of the child, and they will appreciate your work better as a speech and language therapist when they are involved. So I think when it comes to how long can you work with that child, I feel it's based on the severity of the condition, and it also calls for you as a therapist to find a way to engage the parents, the teachers, and every other person around the life of that child.
Yeah, but okay, I understand your response, but I still want to know from your experience.
Okay.
Would there ever be a moment in the whole process of therapy where you will have to let the parents be prepared for an eventuality that the child may not necessarily use spoken words, or like you said now, there is no need, there may be no need for you to inform them. Instead, including them and allowing them be part of the process will help them be able to understand the journey on their own.
I understand your question now. Now, it depends on the level of awareness of the parent. Yes, because there are some parents you tell them, okay, you are trying to be very practical, realistic, and you're presenting the situations and saying, okay, we don't think that, some of them will literally give up even on the child. So we are trying to see how we will help parents to accept the child. And sometimes I believe even mothers do this. They lie to their children to protect them. But in our way, it's not actually lying.
No, it's not lying.
It's holding back information. Now, yes, there are some clients that we have worked with and we have been able to integrate depending on the severity, like I said. And some of the clients we have, instead of channeling our attention so much on how the child will begin to speak, we are now channeling our attention on how the child can communicate using other channels. If he can't speak, of course, he should be able to communicate. Yes.
Because communication, not speaking, isn't the end of communication.
Exactly. It's just one channel of communication. So we can use all channels. So me telling them that this child, they can misunderstand it. But when you meet a well-informed person, the person now will even ask you that question and say, so considering these conditions of my child, this, don't you think that we should find other means of communication? That is how an informed person will put it. And so that gives me a room to begin to open up. Yes, exactly. But when the person say, when will my child talk? I will know that I have to reserve.
Anxiety is there.
Exactly.
You don't want
to blow out things. Exactly. But we should understand that it's based on severity of the condition, and even if the child is not able to use speech, the child should be able to communicate.
Even if the child is not able to use speech, the child should be able to communicate. I like that. Thank you so much, Mr. Boniface. It's been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot, I've understood a lot, and I hope our audience, our viewers, I hope you all have learned a lot. I hope you watch this video more than once, because there are a lot of gems that can be put to use here, that can be used as a way of helping families that are going through issues with the communication issues, helping them understand that it takes patience, it takes consistency. And we look forward to continue to have this conversation because communication is our entire existence. We have to be able to communicate, period. So we will continue to have this conversation on some other times, and I hope that we all like these videos, we share this video so that people who need them will be able to access them. Please, parents need this kind of videos. Even persons who are matured with this condition too, when they come across information like this, it helps them to feel more human, because we don't understand how much insecurity comes with these kind of conditions. You know, our children, they grow. Regardless of the condition they are facing, they grow. And people with speech and communication delays, they don't have cognitive issues. Many of them don't. They just have difficulty expressing their understanding and themselves. And it's very frustrating. But if they can have access to this kind of conversation, it helps them to understand that, oh, okay, somebody understands me. There are things that can be done. We can still be hopeful. So please share this video to as many people as you can, and keep supporting us by joining on our podcast, sending your questions so that we can also learn just as you're learning from us. So until next time on the Ability Inside Disability podcast, have a wonderful week.